This photos is from the October 9, 2016 presidential debate. But if it seems like only yesterday, it's because the 2016 election seems to be continuing. Andrew HarrerBloomberg News A year has passed since Donald Trump was elected president, yet the campaign of 2016 will not end. The president remains obsessed with it. Democrats are still wrangling over a bitter primary contest and a shocking loss in the general election, and analysts are still trying to understand better exactly how it all happened. The public has not moved on either. The divisions that produced the outcome on November 8 remain as deep and pervasive as they were then. Views of the president, pro and con, have changed only a bit among the most partisan. Trump has problems galore that should occupy his time, as his trip to Asia that began Friday will highlight. But in so many of his public utterances and especially his tweets, he refuses to let go of the campaign. At rallies, he has replayed his victories as if they happened yesterday. He demands respect for what he accomplished and doesn't believe he's gotten it. He's still trying to score points against his rival, hammering on Hillary Clinton as if the election is in its last few days. Clinton, however, is mostly a foil as Trump seeks to distract attention from special counsel Robert S. Mueller's investigation, which has worried the president since it began. His tactic isn't working. Last week's indictments of former Trump campaign manager Paul Manafort and Manafort associate Richard Gates, along with the guilty plea of Trump campaign foreign policy advisor George Papadopoulos, demonstrated the degree to which Mueller and his team refused to become sidetracked or intimidated by all the noise from the White House. The Democrats, meanwhile, have been plunged back into another round of recriminations over what happened a year ago. Like Trump, they have not gotten past election night 2016. They cannot erase the sting of the defeat that few expected, and the pain is still close to the surface. Clinton offered her view of why she lost in her recent book What Happened. But that hasn't ended the discussion of whether she and her campaign team did all they could have to prevent Trump from winning. Donna Brazile, who served as interim chair of the Democratic National Committee (DNC) during the general election, has thrown gasoline on this still smoldering fire with her forthcoming book, Hacks: The Inside Story of the Break-ins and Breakdowns That Put Donald Trump in the White House. In an excerpt published in Politico, Brazile asserted that the Clinton team wrongly took control of the finances and operations of the DNC long before Clinton was the effective nominee of the party, as a condition of helping finance an institution that was detrimental during the Obama years. Her assertion has been challenged by Clintonites, who say the agreement applied only to the general election, but the article added to the grievances among the followers of Sen. Bernie Sanders IBT, that the deck was stacked against him in the primaries. Sen. Elizabeth Warren D. Mass, who shares many of Sanders' views on policy, quickly waded into the controversy over whether the DNC had put its thumb on the scale in behalf of Clinton. Asked by CNN's Jake Tapper whether she thought the nomination process last year was rigged, Warren, a possible 2020 presidential candidate, replied, "Yes. She could have deflected the question but chose not to." There will be more coming from Brazile's book when it is published next week that will grab headlines and potentially further inflame the resentment toward the Clinton team among Sanders followers while restarting the bigger debate over how the campaign managed to lose an election so many thought she should win. At a minimum, the unfolding controversy among Democrats is a distraction they don't need right now. But it could reflect deeper differences inside a party that can't shake off 2016 and is still searching for a comeback strategy that goes beyond being anti-Trump. That question hinges in part on which voters are seen as most important to the party's coalition: African Americans and other minorities or the white working class. A new report from the Center for American Progress (CAP), a progressive think tank, offers fresh analysis of 2016 that tries to answer that question. The authors, Rob Griffin, Rita Scherer and John Halpin, plumbed a variety of available resources to produce the analysis, one that they say provides a more accurate portrait of the electorate than did the exit polls. Among the conclusions is that the electorate on Election Day 2016 included a higher percentage of white voters than the exit polls said at the time. More significantly, the composition of those white voters was strikingly at odds with the exit poll estimates. Briefly put, the exit polls radically overestimated the share of white college-educated voters and radically underestimated the share of white non-college-educated voters, the authors write. Exit polls said white college-educated voters made up 37% of the electorate, while white non-college-educated voters constituted 34%. The CAP analysis says whites with college educations accounted for 29% of the electorate while whites without college educations made up 45%. A post-election poll by SurveyMonkey reached a similar conclusion. The report looks at the national electorate as well as those in some of the key states that decided the election, including Pennsylvania, Michigan and Wisconsin, the three Rust Belt states that sealed Trump's victory. After assessing how shifts in support and levels of turnout affected the most crucial states, the authors made other calculations and argue that Clinton would have won the election if either of two things had occurred. She would have won if black turnout and support levels had been identical to those of 2012 or if white non-college educated voters' support had been similar to that of 2012. Neither course was as easy as it might have seemed, however. The authors note that any Democrat would have had difficulty recreating black turnout and support levels of 2012, given that the election involved the first African American elected to the White House. Anyone following would have struggled to generate both the turnout and support levels of those campaigns. Nor did the authors underestimate the difficulty of retaining the 2012 levels of support among white non-college educated voters, given shifting allegiances among that group that have been ongoing. But they argue that even a modest improvement on her performance in 2016 would have allowed Clinton to win the three Rust Belt states. That failure falls on Clinton and her campaign. Trump will be vulnerable in 2020, but Democrats still must better learn the lessons from Clinton's defeat. The authors argue that to appeal to the range of voters they need to win, Democrats must go beyond the identity politics versus economic populism debate to create a genuine cross-racial, cross-class coalition. Is there a leading Democrat out there who has cracked the code yet? Trump, meanwhile, faces the challenge of reassembling the coalition that brought him to the White House at a time when demographic and other shifts continue to shrink the size of that group. Added to that is the fact that so far, his performance in office creates barriers to expanding beyond his 2016 coalition. The 2016 campaign has now effectively lasted for 3 years and the debates over it continue. Imagine what the coming 3 years are likely to bring.